A moment of significant change or a turning point, altering your course, is known as an inflection point. In business, these moments have a significant impact in many ways. That's why we're speaking with leaders from across the asset management industry to hear the stories of their inflection points and the impact they've had on their journeys. Join my colleague and host, Mark Spina, as we explore the business of being in business with insights that can help you wherever you may find yourself. This is Inflection Points.
I'm Mark Spina, President and CRO here at Flex Networks. I'm also the host of InFLXtion Points. I'm joined today by Mr. Robbie Cannon. Robbie, good to see you.
It's always a pleasure, Mark. And as a longtime friend in the industry, I count it a real privilege to be here with you.
Awesome. So for those of you not yet privileged to know Robbie, he's a founder in the asset management space, built a very successful business, which he can tell us more about in just a bit. Currently an active fintech investor, currently also leading the Thrive initiative for the Money Management Institute. Exciting stuff, Robbie. All happening as we record here in 2024. But before we get to current events and developments, we like to go into the Wayback Machine, kind of
Into the archives.
into deep into the archives. We want to go back to formative part of your life, like early schooling, family, friends, activities, adventures that may have started, maybe not directly led to, but maybe started you onto this journey of where you are today. Are there anything that with that prompt pops out for you?
100%. I mean,
All right.
right away. Yeah, right away. My grandfather. So both my grandparents on my mother's side grew up in the Bronx in the Depression. And he got involved in banking pretty early in his career and was in banking kind of throughout in his career. But it's interesting when you think back about the Depression, you think about the stock market crash, et cetera. And here's a gentleman that never invested in the stock market. So he definitely invested in bonds. And if you think about bonds in the 70s and 80s because of inflation, I think even in 87, the highest returning mutual fund was a money market. And so he was the one that kind of set me off on that kind of
Interesting.
investing like interest for sure. And he gave me a little money to set up an account to trade with when there was technology to do that, obviously.
And this is a bit of an odd question. That's what we're here for. Like, so you spent time with him. It's not so, or is this relayed to you by other family members?
No, so he passed when I was a junior in college.
Okay.
So
But
yeah, so it was like I would go and I would spend a good bit of my summers with him and his wife, my grandmother, and just he was a jovial man. He was just a good man. And you knew that he was very successful in business. And I'm just learning now kind of how all that played out. But there's definitely like this interest given about finance just in general, banking maybe more specifically, but then the market, how the market interacted with individuals and accounts and what it could do for people's future, et cetera. And even missing out on opportunities, which
right.
looking back, if you think about like, holy cow, from 70 to 1990 was a huge run in the market, right?
No doubt. I don't know this. Did you study finance? Like, did you go down that path?
So I did an internship at Smith Barney. That's where I kind of started, where they gave you a phone book and said, drum up some business.
I did that too. I didn't drum
Did you?
business.
You had the same phone book I had?
That's what, index cards.
That's where Glenn,
Oh my
yeah,
God.
well, Glenn Ross, that's where that all comes from, right?
Yeah.
I want the good leads.
Yeah.
So no, I actually studied political science. I came in pre-May.
We've not talked about this.
Yeah.
I was a political science major undergrad as well.
Well, in liberal arts, today's college is a little different, but liberal arts, you can take accounting,
Of
econ,
course.
business. You
Absolutely.
have to take those fundamental classes. There, uh, yeah, I went to Furman University, really proud of it. There was no investing courses that you could have taken at Furman regardless. But yeah, political science major, pre-med coming in, and probably like every college student decides, you know what? Biology two with dicots and monocots in some sort of plant world is not all that exciting. So switch gears.
Nice. Lovely campus. Beautiful place.
Le- Top
Talented.
10, usually top 10 campus.
I can see why. The internship. How did that happen? Do you
So
recall?
so in Greenville, South Carolina, there was a Smith Barney office, still is actually, or Morgan Stanley, and a friend of a friend. It usually happens that way, right? Is some sort of
Yeah.
person in the network knows somebody that has a phone book that wants to hand it to you to
Right.
drum up leads. So
Right.
I think we were selling bonds into CD holders way back in the day, which is it's kind of interesting, right? Because you were dealing with one-off products, and then the business, transforms to where it is today, and kind of a full circle. It's almost back to where it started. But
I remember some of the early pitches like
mhm.
Home Depot, Seagram's.
Yep.
Yeah. Like Mr.
And
Cannon, if
right,
I could show you.
yeah, that's right. If I can improve your rate by
Yeah.
89 basis points,
Right. Yeah. Good stuff. How did you get to Horizon?
we all have these like kind of moments in our lives where we remember phrases,
Sure.
and I remember two phrases that stuck with me, not only at starting Horizon, and we'll talk a little bit about that, but just this is from an inflection standpoint. I think this is
Yeah.
what influenced me a good bit is one, my granddad said, always leave money on the table for the next guy. So, and I'm going to give you another one. So remember yours, Mark. Uh, and all that meant was don't be greedy. Well, remember my granddad passed in my junior year of college. So I wasn't in business when he gave me that,
Mm,
information. So, but it was
right.
formative,
Yeah.
and it's always been there.
Yeah. That's
And my
good.
father-in-law, as I was
That's
wrestling with whether to go into Horizon. So I had a number of job offers, and I was like weighing them in Horizon. And my father-in-law said, and I'll never forget this, he said, when you make a decision, make it the right decision. Meaning kind of burn the
sounds
ships in the harbor, like throw yourself at it. And, starting Horizon, you had to do that. I mean, as an entrepreneur, you really do have to burn the ships in the harbor and really kind of go, I'm going to throw myself all in on this thing. And I'll never forget those two kind of moments, and those two phrases have shaped a lot of what I do. So I'm going to throw the question back to you. There has to have been a phrase that like you remember and kind of takes you back to wherever you were and has formatively developed you.
I
So
knew
what's
at some point in this conversation you were gonna turn this into you being the host, but
no,
hey,
not
listen,
not
no, 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 no. Listen, it's really good. And without any pre-planning or pre-thought, I'm gonna take a little liberty and say that the phrase that I think of most routinely, uh, say over the last 10 years or so, and this has come into more popular vernacular is the obstacle is the way, right? There's
that's a great one.
there are unavoidable uh, things that present themselves, both tactical and strategic, and being in the open transparency. I think me and almost everybody kind of naturally avoids those obstacles. With that phrase in mind,
I love
I
that
almost
phrase.
universally address those obstacles first. And I have found that that makes everything else, uh, that actually minimizes the size, scale, and problems presented by those obstacles. And knowing that makes you realize that you're not the first, you're not the only, you're not the last person going through that, and it's a good guidance for me.
Well, I think, as you talk to young people as well as I do, you're missing some of those really good traits like persistence, like long suffering. You never heard hear long suffering, but you're saying, hey, I'm going to take on that obstacle. That's different kind of from what you're getting from the marketplace today. So I love that phrase, and I'm going to adopt you as an entrepreneur because that phrase is like true, like spirit, entrepreneurial, animal spirit, kind of like I'm going to go after it. And I love it.
No doubt,
That's awesome.
no doubt. I think actually that presents kind of a good grittiness, but I also think that in the mutual admiration society here, I like the always leave money on the table for the next guy.
Yeah.
Like I think that sounds gracious. It is. It's self
Yeah.
enlightened though, right? I mean, when you do that, good things happen for the next guy or the next gal, and good things tend to accrue back to your benefit.
Well, and I think there was a movie, Pay It Forward or whatever. And, you know, uh, again, I think that's something lost is this idea, like, Gordon Gekko's greed is good. I think making money is good. I think earning a wage is good. Is greed good? Not if it sucks up all the air or all the oxygen in the room. It's not. So,
Totally agree. We met and you were leading Horizon. We talked about your internship. We talked about you making the decision, when you make a decision, make it the right way. You made that decision. Like what happened next at Horizon?
there's like a few decisions that I think are crucial when I look back at Horizon that really kind of, I don't know if they're stair steps or, incline. Cause when I got into business, if you think about the late 90s, 99 was a tremendous run for anybody that was in the business. But
Mm.
when you say that, you know what's coming, which is
Mhm.
2000, 2002,
Yeah.
which was not a great run. And in fact, everybody thought everybody else was going out of business.
Mm.
And I think the question there is, it what is your decision inside of an environment like that? Is growth really your priority? Because I think when you make a decision to grow, and certainly we did early on at Horizon, is hey, we want to grow. And as simple and as uninformed as we were, um, we made that decision. And again, back to that whole idea of make it the right decision, but the obstacle is the way. And so, you know, making and determining allocation of capital uh, or allocation decisions are really hard at a small firm, obviously because of scarce resources and growth, understandably inherent in it in a small firm uh, requires sacrifice. It just
Mm.
does.
No doubt.
So investments in sales, marketing, resources, whatever you want, office, there's no immediate payback. So I think what everybody thinks is, hey, I'm going to grow. I'm going to hire some wholesalers. I'm going to hire marketers and I'm going to grow. And that it just doesn't work that way. There's sacrifice involved in those next couple of years and maybe 3 years or whatever it is to kind of claw your way through those obstacles as you find them. And there's going to be a lot of them. But the question is do you want to
It,
grow?
it, yeah, in financial terms or financial analysis terms, it manifests itself as a J curve, right? Is
Yes.
in
100%.
in the emotional or psychological terms, it manifests itself as
Well,
sacrifice, right?
well, as you know, in 2001 and 2002, your wife says you made the wrong decision. So,
Oh
and your
yeah.
family's like, I don't know if you're right. You say this is the right decision, but it doesn't look right. 08's another one of those things, right? So while Kobe and Charlotte gets blown out, um, and you see a number of executives lose their options. And yeah, you do question, do I really want to like, is this what I'm after? Because it's going to require more sacrifice. And so it does seem like growth is this constant reminder of, are you okay with the sacrifice? And it kind of continues to put that in front of your face. And how you answer that is really important. And I think one of the decisions we made at Horizon was when there was a market downturn and everybody was pulling away from the market, we're going to push in with our small capital. I'm not saying that, we had tons and tons of money to push in, but we didn't let people go. We tried to push in because we knew if it were to come back, we'd be front footed. And we were right in 2003 and we were right in 2009, 2010. We could have very easily been wrong, very easily. But that was a decision we made. I think the other one was just this idea to trust, and it kind of coincides with this idea of growth. An entrepreneur, by very nature, is not a trusting person. He trusts in himself. He's very self-reliant. Uh, and look, I'm a recovering entrepreneur. I'm a recovering trustaholic. It's very difficult. And I think you have to, that's probably when I look back and go, did I do anything incorrect? Well, yeah, I should have trusted my team more quicker, right? But it's really hard when you start from scratch and you almost, you hit these market crashes like '02 or '08, and to rely on other people in the midst of that risk is really difficult. But this decision to grow, this decision to trust, these are all like very taxing for entrepreneurs because they're personal decisions too. So it's not just a corporate decision. You're not making a decision at BlackRock or Vanguard. You're making it personal as well. So it's very difficult.
Totally. I think you and I have talked in fact about this, right? This concept that what you're describing is that, strengths and weaknesses are in close proximity to one another. And in some ways are on a continuum, like strength, if you're visualizing a circle at
Yep.
the bottom of that circle, that drive, that determination, that entrepreneurial spirit becomes a weakness, in that you don't trust. I'm going to do this by definition. You
That's right.
start with, I'm going to do this myself. You then
That's
get
right.
to, I need others. Can I trust others to do what I think I do best? It's challenging.
It's super challenging. I think a lot of individuals, I know that coaching becomes very important, whether you're an
Mm,
advisor or corporate executive, entrepreneur, whatever. And I think that's part of it is because it's so psychologically taxing because you do have your day job. So you have your day job and then you go at night and you can't put your head down on your pillow because you're thinking about all these things.
no doubt. What are you doing today? We talked fintech investor, we talked Thrive, and not just what you're doing, but kind of
Yeah.
the inflection points that took you to either or both of those spaces.
Let's finish up with Horizon. That kind of
Go
takes you
for it.
to uh, where where I sit today in terms of vantage point. But in terms of Horizon, one of the things that we noticed about the marketplace is just the dynamic nature of it and the um, really transformative change that was taking place uh, during this idea of Morningstar
Mm,
moving to e-money. And what I mean by that is
explain,
that,
please.
yeah, we noticed that advisors were not selling products. They were selling financial plans. And that doesn't happen at every corner office. It doesn't happen at every financial advisor level. But at some point, the market changed from everybody talking about Morningstar and products to talking about e-money and planning. And the
Mm,
language changed in the marketplace. So as you and I were talking about Smith Barney and phone books, we weren't talking about financial plans. We were talking about products.
absolutely.
And so that's if you think about, you can kind of crystallize it in this idea that when we were coming up, Peter Lynch was the hero, you know, Fidelity
Absolutely.
Magellan. If you could run Fidelity Magellan, you were running the world, right?
No, absolutely.
Um, and he had a book that actually, I don't know, maybe a month ago, I said to my niece, you should really read this. It'll help you kind of understand the marketplace. But Peter Lynch was all about know what you own. Like get to know what you own. So if you wear Nikes, buy Nike, get to
Sure.
know the company. And I think globalism has really changed and really created this gap of what individuals own, um, right? And uh, what they can know about what they own in terms of risk, consequence, et cetera, or about a global company. And so
No
there's
doubt.
this huge gap. And the way that the business closed the gap, I think, is with financial planning. They said, you know what? You don't have to worry about the product. Worry about the plan. Worry about where you're going. And the way you notice what Fidelity did very smartly was they moved Peter Lynch out, replaced him with a green line. And so now a person became an algorithm. And so it was very clever how Fidelity it's not a bait and switch. They were going through transformative change and they were showing you where they were headed. Well, at Horizon, we picked up on that trend and we said, you know what? Individuals are worried about outcomes. They're not worried about standard deviations or 3-year returns, et cetera. And I'm not diminishing the fact that you have to create returns for investors.
Of course.
I'm just suggesting that individual investors really think about that in terms of outcome. Am I on track or off track? And I think Fidelity really did a good job with that. And no surprise that they bought eMoney from Edmund Walters. So
Right.
that's something that we watched and kind of followed in that pathway to create this goals-based approach. But what the goals-based approach in terms of investment management needed was technology. So that's how I got to technology. So when we sold our asset
Ah,
manager,
I didn't
we
see
had
that
built some
coming.
technology. Yeah, we
Yeah.
built some technology, and so very easily, if you think about planning, if you think about outcome, if you think about where Fidelity moved, they moved to digital engagement, they moved to apps, they moved to um, this whole idea of how do we digitally transform Fidelity, and I think they've done a marvelous job, quite honestly.
Yeah. As soon as you say it now, it's immediately
Yeah.
trend. Yeah.
So
Just,
whether
yeah.
it's a behavioral tool or whether
Yeah.
it's an app for a vaulting service. I'm highly, I because I believe that the market is continually transforming from a technological standpoint. So yeah, we haven't even talked about AI or blockchain or any of that. Just simply changing. Uh, that's why I became really interested and started investing in fintech.
It's different though, right? So you're from a CEO to an investor with input. How's that transition worked for you
Uh,
personally?
it's it's humbling. I think I get to redo some of the mistakes of the past. I mean, I think I'm more trusting now. Um, yeah, I think I listen a little better. Maybe my family says no. Yeah. And what I would say is there's just incremental improvement, maybe, and that's just all we need.
Absolutely.
Um, I think that's what you're doing is you're trying to you can't do it on your own. And so I can't build technology. I didn't code. I believe that, one of the unique gifts I have is I know if something's commercial or not. And so I
Important
can
gift.
commercialize ideas. Um, but in terms of the technology, for this space, it's just becoming massive and massively important. And the haves and the have nots, it is really obvious. I mean, BlackRock did a great job with Aladdin on the higher end, the more advanced user, and then moving to iRetire, and then filling in the middle space with Wealth Center, and just all the way across that vertical. Done a really good job with technology, and it's one of those firms that kind of stands out because Larry Fink, who's somebody I watch quite frequently, was able to see that a good bit of time ago, over a decade
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah. Yeah. When you present it that way, it's quite compelling. Kind of happened in slow motion, and now you look at the business and they do have kind of from enterprise to advisor to individual well covered.
It looks like a Bloomberg attached to a Morningstar that's attached to an eMoney. I mean, that's kind of what it looks like. And it's really elegant.
Mm.
I'm kind of amazed at what they do. They've got a whole data capture underneath. And I think probably, where we're headed is the argument over who should own the customer's data or the advisor's data. I mean, that's important. And that's coming for our industry. There's a lot of questions that are coming. But I think that's why you see me transition also. MMI was it was such a huge leverage point for me. I mean, it was just very nice, their nod to smaller firms, and they recognize the place that smaller firms play in the industry in general. And so they started making a concerted effort to have their voices heard. And so early on, Craig, who's the CEO of MMI, brought uh, myself as CEO of Horizon onto the board. And uh, very early on in those board meetings, we're deferring to conversations about, hey, how does this affect emerging managers? How does it affect a smaller manager? How does this affect? And I just really appreciated that. I think my time at MMI as a consumer of MMI was that this was a tremendous opportunity to leverage the contacts, the professionals inside of the industry. I mean, I think of guys like Roger Paradiso, who I count as a mentor of mine. I think of peers like Pete Quinn and then Brendan Clark, or Cheryl Nash and Noreen Beeman, that you're like, I can't spend enough time with these individuals. You just got such quality of individuals inside of MMI. And so as part of selling the asset manager, I'm able to give back, and I have such, knowing my background now, why I care so deeply about the emerging manager. And at MMI, we define that as 25 billion and below. But, I was talking to a guy with $250 million under management. And when we started, we had 6 million. I didn't say that, but we had 6 million under management. And you're like, 6 million? I was like, 6 million with an M. Right. And I want nothing more than that $250 million manager to drive billions and billions of dollars worth of growth. I believe he can do it. This industry is amazing. To be able to set up as an entrepreneur and say, I'm going to take on the BlackRocks, the Vanguards, the Catbirds. I got to be all in on that guy. Like, I love that guy. And to your point, the obstacle is the way. Think about how huge that obstacle is. And this firm is going, we're going to do it. And you're like, I got to be behind a guy like that. I got to be behind firms like that. And I just love that MMI is behind firms like that. I know you're behind firms like that, but I can't get enough of that kind of mentality. Is like, yeah, the obstacle is as big as BlackRock, but we can do it. And you're like, more power to you. We were successful with it at Horizon and continue to be, and you can be too.
Yeah. So we share the same energy, right?
Yeah.
We share the belief in what's possible, and we'll make this a whole separate episode, but let's do a tease of sorts for the audience. Tactically, how is it possible? How is it possible for your colleague with 250 million to even contemplate competing in an environment where BlackRock has done such a amazing job and put together elegant solutions? Like, how do you and then we help managers like that overcome those obstacles?
Yeah, let's start with this whole idea of growth and maybe set the expectations that, hey, this is what growth means. Growth means the obstacle is the way. It means sacrifice. And here's what you look, this is going to take a while. And I just want to level set with you that I am with you along the journey. You're with them along the journey, but it's going to take a while.
Yeah.
Number two, it's the right partnerships. And you and I talked about this too, is the right partnerships around your business can make or break it. I really think it can suffocate it, or it can really cause it to flourish. And I think partnerships now are crucial because what you're seeing is the gates are up. The fees are coming down. The regulations are getting harder. It's harder and harder to be a $250 million manager. You got to pick your partners. And so I think firms like Flex, individuals like yourself, can help pick partners because they're going to be crucial. And I think about them as guides or industry experts that can guide you. And, we all use guides when we go to foreign countries. If you want a really good experience, you get a guide. And I think these guides are around. Um, I also think that the partners are changing. So what built the industry 10, 15 years ago in terms of, at least, let's say, the ETF strategy space was really BlackRock, State Street, Invesco, Vanguard. And so you had to partner with those players.
Right.
The game has changed. And so the partners are going to change as a result of how it's erupted. I think also the strategic nature of your firm is really important. And so that's another thing that we should dive into, because it's really about product and placement and people. And I think, how do you think about those things? And in what combination are you going to hit the market with those things? And I think they become very important. So if you think about maybe three things: sacrifice, partnerships, and that combination, um, in terms of how you do your business with the resources that you have, um, probably sets you up or for success, or unintentionally failure.
Totally agree. I think the notion of partnerships is one we characterize as kind of creating synthetic scale, right? For like this $250 million manager, even a $25 billion manager, up to the limits of the Thrive cohort, right? They need partners. They need
Yeah.
synthetic scale in order to compete and picking. But synthetic scale only works if you're achieving it with the right partner. So we totally
With the right expectations, right?
with the right expectations, with the right sacrifice, with everything. Yeah.
I mean, I would say that is, again, it's just a really interesting. The two things that you said that I couldn't agree more with is that I do think there's growth inside that emerging space. So 0 to 25 billion, I think you can grow, and for no other reason that you're smaller, right?
Yeah.
A large asset manager, you're
It's
$7
physics.
trillion.
Yeah.
You're not gonna
Yeah.
double, right? The middle space is really the no man's land.
Yeah.
You can't break into you're not going to get to a trillion, right? But you're too big to play this physics game down at the bottom. And you probably have a lot of legacy assets. And
Yeah.
everybody talks about the iceberg that's melting. But to your point, synthetic scale, like, you have to be realistic with um, not only what you're good at, what you're not good at. And as an entrepreneur, it's very difficult. Like, Mark, you know that it is very difficult to admit I'm not good at those things. I have to trust you or the other partners in that synthetic scale.
Agreed fully. Again.
Yeah.
And I asked for an episode tease. I feel like we got 3 or 4 out of this last exchange. So let's bring it around. Let's bring it around the home curve here, Robbie, and move outside of the professional realm momentarily into more kind of the personal or social realm. What do you do outside of fintech investing, outside of Thrive, that keeps you informed, energized, or grounded, that makes you better inside the business?
Well, I mean, last year, super busy. I know you know this, but I had 2 weddings. So I've got three boys, 2 of which got married, my older and my middle. So that kept us quite busy. One was in June and one was in November. Phenomenal ladies that they married, but the family's growing.
Excellent.
That's kept me engaged. Those 3 boys are incredible. And I would say, mom is 99% to blame for how awesome they are. Probably one. And then, it's funny, but I got really involved in fly fishing a few years back. And I'd gone in Montana and Wyoming. Like, if you go, to some event or whatever, you have the ability to do that. And somebody thinks I said this before, and somebody's like, "You're crazy." And I'm like, there's something about being in nature. So the best time to go fly fishing, it's cold outside, right? And it's probably around freezing which means the water's cold, which means there's probably nobody else there, right? Because what happens is if you stand in that water for very long, your feet are going to freeze. And it's probably going to take, I don't know, half hour to get the feeling back in. But you're going to be sitting there in nature. Your cell phone probably doesn't work if you're in a state park or a national park, and it's just amazing. And so I know a lot of guys turn to golf. I never grew up golfing, but I love fly fishing, and I just love being out in nature and getting that space to kind of think and just enjoy what's around. So it's interesting. I'm one of those guys that picks up trash along the side to make sure that the river's better for the next guy. But that's so between family and fishing, those are two really big things. I'm also a foodie. I think you know that. I'm a foodie. I love wine. I love good food. And
Are you
yeah,
leaving? Or
I'm,
here's a question though: are you always leaving fish on the table for the next guy?
it is catch and release.
Yeah.
So yeah, you need to do that. I'm not leaving wine on the net, nor any type of Italian food. I'm Italian,
Right.
and I can make and eat some good pasta.
Awesome. Awesome. So on that high note, Robbie, let's wrap it up. I want to say thank you to Robbie.
Always a
Big,
pleasure, sir.
likewise. Big thank you to our listeners for your time, allowing us to occupy and potentially, with Robbie's help, enhance your mind space. We think your time and mind space both are valuable. As Robbie and I both freely admit, we are a work in progress as people and a podcast. So if you picked up anything of interest, please subscribe, leave a reading, a review, and until next time, keep looking for your own inflection points. Thank you, Robbie.
Thank you, Mark.
The information contained in this recording is provided as is, for educational and informational purposes only, and should not serve as the basis for any trading or investing decisions. Flex Networks makes no representation and disclaims all express, implied, and statutory warranties of any kind to any viewer, listener, or third party. Neither Flex Networks nor any of its affiliates make any endorsement of any particular company, security, product, or financial strategy, and nothing contained in this recording should be construed as investment advice. Investors should undertake their own due diligence and carefully evaluate companies before investing.